Hey docs, I'm going to thank you for showing an interest in this three-part series we are going to do on concussions for chiropractors specifically. Now I want to tell you right off the bat, this is the next stream of new patients for your practice. It's possibly one of the easiest ways you've gotten new patients in your door that are qualified, subluxation based, and a whole lot more than pain. I'm going to dive into 3 videos that are loaded with content. You're absolutely going to want to take some notes. And I assure you, this is the next new patient stream into your practice. And if you act quickly, you can dominate this market. But I will tell you, medicine is closing in on some things that could muddy the waters. So you need to act quickly with the information I'm going to share. We have to do it in 3 videos because there's just too much in this topic for you to be effective if we try to cram it into one video. So I'm going to jump right into it. One of the easiest ways to get new patients into your practice is what I call pull marketing. Pull people into a conversation, pull them into something they're already curious about. Push marketing is where we have done for too long in this profession. We push information, we do drip email campaigns, and push marketing is dead. You want to pull people into a conversation because we live in an opt-in world. And I would tell you one of the easiest ways to pull people to your practice, to attract believers, is to realize what is the cultural conversation. In other words, what's the conversation happening in your community? What are people talking about? What do they want? It's always easier to give them what they want than to give them what they need. But in this conversation, I'm going to show you how to do both. Give them what they want and give them what they need, because it really comes down to being a cultural authority when we look at the cultural conversation. So step 1 is, what is the cultural conversation? No mystery, concussion has been huge. It's been huge before the movie came out, but since the movie came out, about a year ago at the time of this filming, it's exploded. There's been changes in Major League Baseball for the rules at home plate running into catchers. AYSO soccer here in America has changed the rules on head balls. Rugby internationally has changed some of the rules for their youth. We also have changes when it comes to some of the headgear for other sports. And funny enough, but one of the sports that's been put under the microscope has been American football. Now, as of late, the NFL has just reached a settlement with the Players Union that just topped $1 billion. Because ultimately, this comes down to brain health. So again, the 2-step process is, what is the cultural conversation? And can you be the cultural authority? Because it is brain-based health, which is the master controller of the nervous system, I assure you, you can be the cultural authority. If you watch this 3-part video series all the way through, there are certainly action steps that you're going to want to implement with every step of the way. Now, when we look at cultural conversations in the past, unfortunately, chiropractors have done this all wrong. And I want to save you from some of the mistakes because we see it where chiropractors try to enter the conversation and then make it about chiropractic. You see, we try to enter a conversation that maybe has nothing even close to a chiropractic message, and then we get frustrated when all we have are pain-based new patients. You see, you run a family-based wellness practice, but all we've been taught to market is pain-based new patients. Well, we can change that. Because if all you're marketing to is pain-based new patients, because that is the low-hanging fruit, well, then you have a low-hanging practice. And anytime the laws change, the rules change, and the patient feels better, there goes the need for more new patients through the roof. I want to change that cycle for you, because if you get pre-educated, pre-qualified new patients in the door, and I've already said it once, but it's worth mentioning again, is if we can get you to attract believers, then believers always send you referrals, and the next wave of new patients are the referred. And those are the 1 and 2 kinds of new patients I want in my practice. One is the pre-educated, pre-qualified, attracting believers to my practice, which far exceeds attracting a skeptic. And then number 2 is the referred new patient. And I would tell you it's in that order. I prefer a new patient from a talk because I've defined my practice. And then when those people send me referrals, they're even higher quality referrals because, again, they got the right message. This isn't a bait and switch. This isn't pain-based, and then eventually I'll teach them about the nervous system. I'm going to show you with this topic of concussion how important it is to realize it is the cultural conversation. People are talking about this in all sports, at all ages, and we can hone in on a really important target group that I'll speak about in a minute. But when you're the cultural authority, it makes it so much easier. because medicine has not put their flag in the ground, and again, this is a conversation specifically for chiropractors, this is your opportunity to grab the real estate, to make your claim on this huge topic. There is a ton of gravity. There is a ton of pull. Let's direct it to the front door of your practice. And I want to tell you right now, admittedly, I have an unfair advantage. I have an unfair advantage when it comes to teaching this information because I'm in practice. I'm actually doing this. And I'm speaking from experience. At the time of this filming, we did 9 lectures in the course of 90 days. And it generated 155 new patients. A year ago from the time of this filming, I rented out the Rose Bowl. Pasadena, California, the granddaddy of them all, as Keith Jackson would narrate the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. We rented out the Rose Bowl and I hosted a seminar in the Rose Bowl called Concussion Roulette. And the reason I called it Concussion Roulette is because I know, unequivocally, people will make decisions and they'll take a risk if you can move them away from a loss. I want to say that again, because we're going to give you some advanced strategies in this 3-part series. It's gold. People will take a risk. In other words, they'll make a new patient appointment in your practice if you can message it in such a way that you move them away from a potential loss. You see, better doesn't sell. And we've done this for far too long in this profession. We'll make you better. We'll make you taller. We'll make you jump higher as an athlete. That doesn't work. What I'm going to do is teach you fundamentally what works. And the target group, just so we're clear, are going to be athletes between the ages of 10 years old and 16 years old at any level. Just casual intramural sports at the middle school level up to high school athletes looking to play at the next level in college, and there's a scholarship on the line. The key about this is it's a rising population within the topic of concussion. There are 5 million concussions annually in the United States every year, and the number keeps going up because of this cultural conversation. Now, there's 2 theories on that. One is the conversation's so big that everybody's getting the diagnosis. 2 is we're finally waking up to the damages of second concussion syndrome. You see, last year, second concussion syndrome killed 18 high school athletes. This is when they had 1 concussion, the brain hadn't fully healed. They go back out and have a second head trauma, and it killed 18 high school athletes last year. So because second concussion syndrome is also a part of this ever-growing conversation of concussion, the cultural conversation, that's why we call it concussion roulette. Because if you put an athlete back to play too soon, it's like another bullet in the chamber. And it's right on point with where you want to be on this topic. So part of what I want to do is share with you my experiences, and having the unfair advantage, I can differentiate a concept and a theory into the application and the result. Now the concepts will certainly go over, but the results, I've got them. 155 new patients from 9 lectures. You do the math. We're somewhere between 18 and 19 prepaid new patient appointments every time we give this lecture. And the shorter you can give this lecture, the more places you can get into, and I'll cover that as well. But one of the things that is super important is understanding a little sideline of where this can really take your practice, because I hear it all the time. I don't want a pain-based practice. But as my friend Patchen Temple would say, you've got business cards with people bent over with a lightning bolt coming out of their ass, and you're talking about low back pain, but yet you say you run a family-based wellness practice. I get it. There's a contradiction. There's a conflict in what it is that we say. Jack Canfield says problems are profitable. If you can be the solution to the problem, then there is a ton of upside to your practice. And it's not just the economics. The profitability is better health for these athletes and knowing exactly what it is that they have going on. The coolest part even still is that we can move a new patient from a pain-based model only, which is what most chiropractors market to, into a functionality, or even further up the ladder into a performance-based. How cool would it be to attract a performance-based new patient that knows the reason they're there is to get their subluxations checked and their spine checked, and then that becomes the premise by which we start. Really neat stuff. When the premise is checking for a subluxation as it affects their performance, and I'll show you how this ties right back into the academics. We take this conversation on a nice ride. It's going to benefit you greatly. And remember, people will take a risk or make a new patient appointment when you move them away from a loss. And when the loss can even affect the academic level because of the brain trauma as it ties into C1, C2, and C3, we'll work in brainstem through the subluxation process. It is awesome! And I'm fired up because we've already gotten the results. Now, the fact that we rented out the Rose Bowl and taught this content in its behemoth form, the reason I bring that up is it was a year ago. I don't like to do videos like this in promotions unless I feel like we've mastered it. And in 90 days, number one, booking these talks was really easy. Number two, how we gave the talks, I made some mistakes at first. Then when I corrected them, our numbers went through the roof. And number three, the ease at which people signed up and the level of commitment and concern was huge. So I want to give you some insight as to the decision-making phenomena, what people decide and what they do to get them out of pain into a functionality and up to a performance-based level. They at least have to be concerned. This has to be something that is maybe even critical to them. And if it's in their mind a crisis scenario, then they act super quickly. So I'll give you those 3 points again. It's concern, critical, and the bullseye is crisis mode. Now, it doesn't need to be scare care, so just relax. But I'll tell you, this is a crisis scenario. When 18 high schoolers have died, second concussion syndrome is real. And when I show you the analysis of a chiropractic approach to a traditional medical approach, you're going to see this is your topic. This is your opportunity to pull pre-educated new patients that want to get a subluxation checked out that maybe have no pain. And then what also comes with it are people that will have frozen shoulder. They'll have neck pain. They've had stingers. They've had low back injuries. Look, that's easy. But we're going to teach you how to attract all kinds of new patients. And again, my unfair advantage is I'm in practice. We see a high volume. I've got pro athletes in the NFL, in the NHL, in Major League Baseball, and in the NBA. I don't have any pro athletes right now from local NBA teams. But one of the cool things, so we've got Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL. And the NBA is the only one that I don't have in my practice right now because last year the Lakers sucked. So here's the deal. We've got two things that kind of came out of this concussion conversation. I want to be really honest on these videos and maybe share some things about my practice that I don't in quick 5-minute videos. We've got YouTube tips that we put out all the time. I do quick interviews and podcasts. We've got a 3-part series. This is video 1. So I want to share some personal stories and kind of give you a look into my practice a little bit. We are a subluxation-based practice. We do corrective care in my office, and a lot of people think when you see athletes, you do rehab, you do therapies. I don't. I'm not against it, but I don't do that. A lot of people assume there's a ton of extremity work. I don't. I don't work off the spine. A lot of times you're pulling on ankles and touching their toes and pulling on their feet, and you don't need to work off the spine. You need to work up the spine. It's a subluxation problem. It's a proprioceptive problem. And when you realize what the safety pin cycle is, you're not working off the spine. You're working on correction of the spine and the subluxation. And the neurology supports this exactly the way it needs to be done. And we've got that recipe too. So there are 2 patients I want to share with you that really kind of led me down this journey. And I will tell you, it came from a place of frustration. So if you're taking notes, one of the things I would write down is oftentimes a handicap becomes your passion. What started as a handicap, as a limitation, can ultimately become a passion of yours. And for me, I didn't know very much about this. But I had 2 scenarios of professional athletes that were scared away from seeing a chiropractor. They were told by the team trainers, the lead orthopedic surgeons of their teams, don't see a crazy chiropractor because of some risk factors that might be associated. They do voodoo, it's unscientific. Well, when they were given surgery as an option and when they had some troubles on an ego level with the personal trainers, the team trainers, I guess not personal, it's athletic trainers for the teams, that's when they looked for alternative means. And I'm okay with that. If they consider us alternative to the norm, I'm cool with that. Because I want to show you how much better you are positioned in your practice to deal with this than the traditional medical system, at least at the time of this filming, if you take action. And if you wait, medicine's catching up on this real quick. You got to know they're going to have some crazy medicine or some vaccine to do this, right? They're going to pump a vaccine in the ear hole that puts foam around the brain. Pharmaceutical companies, they're coming out, right? It's going to be coming soon. So I want you to be serious about this. Little personal story is that we had a player from the Major League Baseball, MLB player, who was a catcher and had gotten plowed into at home plate a couple times too many. One of which we have the video footage for. Fly ball to the outfield, somebody tags up on third base, it was a short pop-up, throws it to home, the guy at the plate then became a new patient, catches the ball at home plate, gets plowed into, and gets hammered at home plate, knocked out cold. And while he's knocked out, it takes him a couple minutes to really regain his bearings, get to his feet, and it was a devastating hit. We actually bought the footage from Major League Baseball, and because the patient has been a patient of mine for many years, that's where my journey on this started. It started from a place of frustration. He came in, mild depression. In his own words, what he said was, if pro ball players don't have a chiropractor, then they will become a part-time pharmacist. I thought that was amazing. And I shared that recently at the California Jam, that a part-time pharmacist is what each professional athlete will become if they don't have a full-time chiropractor. It was a wow factor for me. But through his battles with foggy thoughts and brain function and memory, anxiety, depression, problems sleeping, all went back to his concussion. Was scared away from seeing a chiropractor by the team athletic trainer. Was forbidden to see it by the team orthopedic surgeon. You know how this story goes. Ultimately came in, got his adjustment, and very much like you've heard Jim McMahon say on the 30 for 30, felt like his brain got flushed out after one adjustment. And the frustration that he then had, why did they tell me not to see you? Why don't more people that have been concussed have this? Over time and doing corrective care, clarity of vision, memory improves, feeling better, aches and pains, tied it back into some leaky gut syndrome. There's a whole number of things that go on when the autonomic nervous system is haywire because the master controller controls everything. Concussion is the quintessential chiropractic conversation. And if you don't see that, then you must not be a vitalistic chiropractor. I'll say that for sure. Not that I'm against mechanistic, but if you are just looking for mechanistic new patients, let me save you the mystery on these other 2 videos that are coming in this 3-part series. Don't watch them. Don't watch them, you'll be wasting your time because I'm going to teach you to attract vitalistic new patients. And this patient, Matt, came in after he retired and said, you know what, if I had gotten chiropractic care through my playing years, I would have played longer. I could have signed bigger deals. So he's been one of our spokesmen. He's been speaking to groups of chiropractors, trying to get more excitement around this because it's changed his life. So that was one example of what we call an impact collision. Boom! Hit hard. That's what a lot of people think of. Now, since then, they've changed the rules in professional baseball. You cannot hit a catcher like that because they're so vulnerable, and they're starting to see the impact of concussions on brain function over time. CTE was a big part of that cultural conversation. Impacts like that, they've changed the rules of the game in professional baseball. But patients like that still exist, and it's still fresh in the mind of your community. This is your opportunity. There is a problem. That's an impact collision. I had another patient who played in the NHL. We have not yet acquired the rights for his video footage, but when he was taken off for the 3rd time in a stretcher and full cervical precautions off the ice after getting knocked out, they realized he had what was known as an impulse concussion. So there's an impact and there's an impulse. He got hit in the hip as he was skating up the ice, and because he'd had 2 other concussions, the quick start stop of his body, the tension, what is called tensegrity, very much a chiropractic conversation, of the nervous system and the jarring of the brain put him out immediately, cold. Now, this was a mystery for the team orthopedic surgeons. This was a frustration point for the athletic trainers, so they made it sound like this tough, hard-hitting NHL defenseman who's played in 3 Olympics for Team USA and has won a Stanley Cup, that maybe he was having some issues of his own, not health-related. Boom! Atlas adjustment, same thing. Cleared up, full functionality, proprioceptive effects are restored, afferent, efferent nerve canals. This is an amazing conversation. But these two patients that I had in different sports, one was an impact concussion, one was an impulse, which tends to be missed more often and tends to create more frustration, have the same side effects years later. I'll say it again, they have the same side effect years later. Now we take this conversation, we overlay it to middle schoolers, high schoolers. You share these stories, some of the statistics I'll give you in a moment, and it's mind-boggling. You put this to a parent, and we draw the dots of the Journal of Pediatrics and what they've shown on an academic performance level that I'll give you in video too. It's insane the opportunity that is there because you're literally saving kids. I don't run a sports-only practice. I don't run a pediatric practice. I have pro athletes that then bring me their children. And those two athletes, you better believe they got their newborns checked within days of them being born. And my only request was, I wish it was hours. Okay? This is the conversation we are having. I want you to dominate it. I'm going to break down in just a moment the difference of the medical approach and the chiropractic approach and show you how this is wide open. This 3-part video series is going to be loaded with nuggets should you apply them. Some of the statistics. 5 million concussions last year in 2016 in the United States. 18 deaths from second concussion syndrome. We've now tied in the fact that there is a 3.7 times greater likelihood of an ACL tear after a head trauma, concussion. We know concussions are a major trauma to the brain, which is not supposed to happen. The way the body's designed, it's the only thing completely housed by bone. And I explain that to the parents of these patients. But one of the key things when it comes to that is a whiplash is horrible to the spine. Tons of chiropractic research on what a whiplash does to the cervical curve, how that affects the body for years later. And we know most whiplashes happen from 4 to 10 G's of force. 4 G's to 10 G's of force for a whiplash. It's devastating. If you've been in an accident, you know it. You see whiplash patients, I'm sure, in your practice or personal injury patients. 4 to 10 G's of force. Yet concussions happen at 90 G's and above. It's crazy what it does to the body. So some of the statistics in the growing population is that the number one age range that is being affected are really at the middle school level. 10-year-olds to 14-year-olds have a huge spike, more in that age category than anywhere else. There's twice as many concussions at the high school level than there are at the collegiate level, and there's more at the collegiate level than at the pro level. So you don't need to have pro athletes in your office. In fact, I didn't start in this journey to do that. I was frustrated because I couldn't really help the NHL player because it was an impulse concussion. It took me a while to research it, to get better as a practitioner, as a technician, to help this athlete out. But boy, you better believe that's one of my biggest advocates now. Stanley Cup winner. And then also with a Major League Baseball player. I wasn't really good. I didn't know a lot about this topic. His frustration, his outright plea for help, that I was the last resort, drove me to be a better doctor. So I researched it. I did my homework. I became a student of this topic so that I could give better care. So again, out of my handicap, out of my frustration, I became a better communicator. I became a better doctor because of these athletes. And as a result, and I've seen this over and over, I want to share this with you. So some of the statistics are astounding. The growing population of concussions is also going to increase as the awareness grows. I'm seeing doctors that aren't sure if they're concussed or not, so they just slap the label on there. The problem is once that label gets attached to an athlete, it's easier to keep them out, and they lose playing time. They lose playing time, they're also going to lose scholarship opportunities. Remember, when it comes to your marketing, you can motivate people to action if you move them away from a loss. The loss of a scholarship is a big one. We've got this topic wired, and I want to show you how we can take it to the masses at a quicker, faster, better rate with better results in a proactive manner, and medicine is not positioned to do this. But you better believe they're working on drugs, they're working on vaccines, they're working on their own procedures, because the amount of ambiguity on this topic is tremendous, admittedly, by the AMA research, publications, and journal articles, and I've read them, and I can cite them, and I'm telling you, admittedly, in their own words, there is ambiguity on concussions. They don't know what to do. I heard one of the leading experts on concussion say, we know more about the oceans than we do the brain. Chiropractors, I'm going to go to the whiteboard in a minute. I'm going to sketch this out. I'm going to show you a chiropractic message versus a medical message and how this is your topic of conversation. This is video 1 of 3. I hope we've shared some stats and some insight already that's opened your eyes to the possibilities of how you can draw new patients into your practice. Should you follow this recipe, I'm telling you what, it will go Richter in your office. And if you do this right, and we do this right collectively as chiropractors, we can dominate a brain-based, subluxation-based healthcare opportunity for new patients like nothing I've seen in 20 years of practice. And we can do it better than the medical doctors. I'll go to the whiteboard and sketch this out. You be the judge for yourself. But I'm telling you, results of my practice speak. 9 talks that were 10-minute talks on concussion roulette, which yielded 155 new patients at the time of this recording. And admittedly, the first couple were scuds. I didn't do it exactly right. We still pulled new patients, but I was still figuring out the kinks and the message of how we need to do it. I wish someone would teach it to me like I teach other doctors. But collectively, if we get this message right, I'll show you exactly how this is a golden opportunity to attract believers, be the cultural authority on what is certainly the cultural conversation. And I'm going to go to the whiteboard to show you exactly. You be the judge. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of whiteboard this. This again is in relationship to concussions, how the medical approach is different than the chiropractic approach. And I've proceduralized this stuff from the talk, booking the talk given to a group of parents to attract new patients into the practice, to then having procedures within your office that make it subluxation based. And there's so many lumping spots that can happen. I'm speaking from experience, but what I want to do is talk about how your philosophy as a chiropractor is different than as a medical doctor, how your procedures in your office are dramatically different than what they're looking at in a medical office. And then as a chiropractor, it's going to be a whole different set of results compared to what they're looking for. So number one is we're going to work it from the philosophy through your procedures so you get your desired result. Okay, good foundation coming up. Number one is on the philosophy side for medicine. What they're trying to do is standardize their care. They're trying to standardize everything. What we are going to do is individualize. So the difference here is, as I mentioned, one of the medical doctors said, we know more about the oceans than we do the brain. We're going to continue to do research till we can get norms and populations in place. And then if somebody thinks they have a concussion, we'll compare them to the research that tells us the norm. In other words, what's 120 over 80? And if that's the norm, then that's what everybody should have. And this is crazy, right? This idea that, hey, this is what blood pressure should be. This is what we should have, and now it's the norm. Doesn't matter if you're 7 feet tall or if you're 4 feet tall. This is the standardized blood pressure. You see where that's gotten us. When they can standardize it, then they can make pill recommendations based on what Big Pharma does in research. The philosophy is we need to get a standardization so that we can recommend a pill. And I know this because I've talked to medical experts. They say that giving something like Advil or Tylenol is detrimental in the first hour, first couple of days, because it actually promotes bleeding and it stops the coagulation factor. So we tell moms that if you're giving Advil or Tylenol, you're hurting your child. That counterintuitive info in the lectures that we give, it blows me away at how many parents have their eyes open. We recently did this and we had one medical doctor in the group say, I've been recommending this for years, and you're right. I can't believe it. These are the MDs. Standardize numbers for concussion. Let's come up with a pill to treat it. Over here, what we are going to do is we are going to individualize it, and then we're going to teach basically how the ability of the innate intelligence to heal the body is something that we will teach from a chiropractic standpoint. And there's a whole bunch on this as to once somebody has a brain concussion, how their body basically within 3 hours develops leaky gut. It's all kinds of cool stuff autonomically. If you look at the brain-based connection, it's really, really cool. Not cool in the sense that I'm happy, but it's our conversation. I mean, it's cool. It's like, this is chiropractic. They go, wait, so an injury to the head affects the gut? Yeah, and that's the immune system, and then it depresses the immune system. And then these pro baseball players I'm talking to you about, they've had years of depressed immune system, catching colds, and they know their body so well. After I had that injury, this is what changed. And in their own words, they talk about a depressed immune system. So number 2 are the procedures. And when it comes to procedures, one of the things that I want to look at is how personalized can we make this. So the procedures medically, what they're looking at is trying to get norms based on huge populations. They're trying to get norms for their procedures so that we can take an 11-year-old girl and say she should be able to do this and this is what's normal. And if she can't produce this function, then we must take them out of the sports for a year. We must give them 6 weeks to rest. They're trying to come up with these healing times, these data and number to plug everybody into. The procedures in ours gets away from the norms because everything they do over here is on a reaction level. What we do here on the chiropractic side is our procedures isn't so much on the norms as it's on the imprint of the individual. So basically, they're looking at reaction. What we do is proactive health. So we test athletes before they have any head traumas. And as a result of being proactive, we don't just have the norms, we basically have a unique approach where we can compare athletes to themselves. So what's so cool about this is, as opposed to comparing an athlete to a norm, we take the unique approach that each athlete's going to be different and we can compare them to themselves. I'm going to pause here for a moment because that means 99% of the new patients we've attracted have never had a concussion. This conversation in this 3-part series, it's important for you to know it's not about attracting concussed patients. It's about the proactive approach for people that have never been concussed, removing subluxations to get them to function at a higher level. It's really cool stuff. And then the results medically, what they're trying to do is minimize death. Quintessentially, they're trying to eliminate second concussion syndrome, and they're also trying to eliminate CTE. They're trying to eliminate some of the weird and the wonderful. Second concussion syndrome, and then the long-term effects of CTE, and the results obviously are going to tie into what it is you want in your practice. In ours, we're trying to maximize performance, and we are attracting believers. So basically, the difference is we're not worried about death, we're also worried about the functionality of the person. Because once we have the young athletes come in, their parents also want to get checked. Their parents also, and what the parents are trying to do is maximize their function. If I took this a step below it, it would basically be pain. The results are we have some pain-based new patients. We have a lot of function-based patients that want to optimize it. We've even had some grandparents come in that use what we teach them to eliminate the risk of falls. Fall prevention is huge. That's a function that they're trying to do. But for the young athletes, it's performance. So we have patients that come in with frozen shoulder, low back injuries, but it's rare from this talk. It's the smallest population. The functionality tends to be the referred new patients, and that we're maximizing performance. On the medical side, what they're trying to do is avoid second concussion syndrome. They're trying to avoid brain damage. And basically, what they do is what would be a correlation to pain, is they're trying to eliminate any fogginess of the brain. This is their results, what they're trying to do. And there even was a study in American Scientific. It's a magazine. American Scientific talked about growing brain tissue, that if there was this fogginess later in life, they could replace brain tissue. It's crazy. Where they're going, the path they're on, they're trying to standardize it. It's pill-based. They're trying to get norms, and it's always after a concussion is what they're trying to do medically. And then they're basically just trying to avoid that. That's their whole goal. When we look here, we've got an individual approach to health. It's unique because it's comparing the athlete to themselves is the process we teach, and it's all proactive. It's all pre-concussion status. And then what we can do is attract different kinds of new patients. Sure, there's pain-based, functionality-based, but perhaps most importantly are the 10 to 14-year-olds that are performance-based. And I'll show you how concussion can tie into other injuries of the body like the ACL and the ankle, as well as grades in school in video 2. It's insane. This is the cultural conversation. And as you can see, medically, this is going down the wrong path. The reason I'm excited to share this with more chiropractors is I want more people thinking along this way. Individual, proactive, performance. This is video 1 of a 3-part series. Some pretty cool stuff we're tapping into. Be the cultural authority on this all-important cultural conversation. The master controller flows through the nervous system. People live their lives through the nervous system. And if you want to be a vitalistic nervous system doctor, then you need to watch video 2 and 3. If you want more low back pain and disc injury patients, do not waste your time. I'm not into doing that. We have some really cool chiropractors that help people with disc injuries and avoid surgery. I'm not judging it. But if you're a mechanistic chiropractor, you do not need to watch video 2 and 3. There's going to be low value there. It's for the vitalistic docs that want something different, better than low-hanging fruit, because this is of great value, and where there is great value, cost is not a consideration. If there is no value, cost becomes of major consideration. So coincidentally, one of the byproducts of doing this correctly is you can attract more cash-based new patients into your practice. Hey, video 2 and 3 are going to rock. This is content rich. I hope you're enjoying it. Thanks for cluing in for our concussion roulette conversation. I want more chiropractors successful by your own definition in a vitalistic model. That's what we're teaching here on this 3-part video series. Video 2 and 3 are going to rock. We'll see you there.
In his ear, you don't really say it loud, loud enough for him to hear it. It's same at first base when you're.
Alex running up to make the play. Again, Laporta doesn't run well. Here's a throw to the plate, and once again, a runner is out. Trainer gets flattened on the play. Moving up to second base is Carrera. Trainer trying to get up. And you can tell he is dazed and confused. He might have been unconscious for a moment. But he was leveled by Matt Laporta. And now they're going to ask for a towel to wipe the dirt off of his face and give Trainer some time to. He might be spitting up some blood. It looks like he has a cut on the left side of his face. Wow. And the right side of his face, it looks like his right eye is starting to swell. By the way, the Royals outfield has come in to check on Matt Trainer. That's how much they care about him and how important he is to the Royals. You got Melky Cabrera and Alex Gordon come running in from the outfield. He might have been out cold for a moment there, because when he came up, you could tell that he was not exactly sure where he was.
Well, you can look at his eyes and really tell that, Ryan. I agree with you on that one. I mean, Alex hits off a good throw, and Laporta doesn't run well, and Trainer gets the ball, but he just got a good forearm to the side of the head, and that's really what probably knocked him unconscious for a little bit. Just a right forearm right to the chin.
Yeah, he's out cold there. Ooh. You know, the way he took a shot to the head and the way his neck jerked back, it was a good sign just to see him get to his feet.
Yeah, just like a good, just got him with a good forearm right into the side of the face. You can see it just, his mask goes off and it just spins around after he's hit.
there, Matt Trainer here, pro baseball player of 18 years. Just wanted to give you a little information about my champion, Brad Glowacki. Been coming in for a few years now. I initially came in with my wife when she was getting ramped up for the Olympics, and kind of took a back seat. Didn't think it was going to be all that important to me to get adjusted on a regular basis until I started getting adjusted on a regular basis. We started talking about complete wellness, nutrition, the whole deal, the mind, body, spirit, making up a complete person. Me personally, I was suffering from a lot of symptoms from concussions when I started initially getting treated by Brad. And just by Brad knowing my body, he was able to understand that there was more going on with me than just my spine. And he went ahead and looked for some answers for me. We together have started doing some concussion treatment, and that's helped me out a ton. But as far as I can say for Brad, and a testimonial for this office, is that this is about complete wellness. This office is all about complete wellness. That's mind, body, and spirit. That incorporates the nutrition, the performance, everything that you have going on in your life can be taken care of here in the office. It took me a long time to get into the office and be a part of this because of baseball. And initially, you get surrounded by the medical field and you think those are the answers until you really branch out and start getting some information of your own. And so now this is where I come to stay healthy. So every week, Tune Up Tuesday, maybe a second day of the week, but this is where I stay whole as a person. So thank you, Brad.